Tammy Slaton, star of 1000 Olp Sisters, is getting married again. She has decided to make a 28-year-old man her lifelong companion. However, because Amy Slaton opposes the marriage, she will not be there on this momentous day. Tammy Slaton, star of the reality show 1000 Olp Sisters, was set to start a new chapter in her life in the middle of a small town. She had discovered love again after months of searching for herself and putting a lot of effort into her path of self-love and change. She had fallen in love with Philip, a 28-year-old man who made her feel her best. Tammy felt powerful in ways she never would have imagined with his help. Tammy was excited to walk down the aisle as the couple planned their wedding. There was only one issue. The marriage wasn't supported by her sister, Amy Slaton, who had supported her through thick and thin. Amy had always been Tammy's guardian, watching over her and helping her get through the most trying times in life. However, Amy wasn't comfortable with Philip this time. One evening, Amy had stated, "I just don't think he's the right person for you, Tammy," with a hint of worry in her voice. "I've watched you grow, and I want the best for you, but I don't see that with him." Tammy had been heartbroken. She valued Amy's viewpoint, but she also understood that sometimes you have to make your own decisions, even if they are painful for the people you care about. Amy made it plain that she would not be attending the wedding after weeks of deliberations and disagreements. Tammy's choice was final despite the emotional upheaval. Philip gave her the confidence to take on the world, and she was determined to marry him. She continued to believe that love, in its purest form, would find a way, even if the weight of her sister's absence increased as the big day drew near. Tammy stood before a mirror on the wedding day, gazing at her reflection in the white dress. She appeared stunning, strong, self-assured, and prepared to move on. She knew this was her time, her choice, even if her pulse was pounding with both terror and excitement. Tammy was terribly missing Amy as she made her way down the aisle alone, accompanied only by her closest friends and relatives. She missed the happiness they used to have together, as well as her sister's kind grin. However, she was also aware that sometimes you have to pave your own way, even if it means spending some time by yourself. For the first time in a long time, Tammy felt truly pleased as she exchanged vows with Philip, the love of her life. She couldn't help but think about her sister, the only person who wasn't around to experience this unique occasion. Thus, the celebration was a mixture of happiness and sorrow. As the evening wore on, Tammy thought about how many people had loved and supported her, and how she had come to trust her own intuition. She was prepared to take things one step at a time, with or without Amy at her side, even though the path ahead might be difficult. Ultimately, Tammy was certain that love was difficult, but it was worth the struggle. She was prepared for the new life she had created with Philip, even if it meant getting married without her sister. She secretly hoped Amy would come to understand one day. Even though Tammy had always battled with her weight, she refused to let it to define who she was. She and her brother, Kyle, have been trying to lose weight for years. Kyle had always been lighter since he was the more athletic one. Tammy, however, was determined to make that change. Tammy finally got onto the scale one morning after months of hard work, including morning walks, rigorous diets, and even hiring a personal trainer. Her eyes were stunning. 298 pounds. Kyle was 10 pounds heavier than that. She was so happy that she hurried to notify her family. "I did it, Kyle. I'm lighter than you," she exclaimed, her delight unbridled. With a laugh, Kyle gave her a hug. "I was confident you could. Tammy, you've worked so hard for this. You have my admiration." Tammy's eyes filled with tears. It was about demonstrating to herself that she was powerful, capable, and unstoppable, not simply about the number on the scale. And she felt very free for the first time in years. However, the storm that broke out in the Miller home was a normal Saturday afternoon. Tammy, a strong and self-reliant young lady, had gotten into a furious dispute with Amanda, her older sister. The sisters' relationship had always been complex. One moment, they were the closest of friends, and the next they were fighting over trivial matters. It was the same today, when Amanda barged in, looking agitated. Tammy had been in the kitchen all morning making a giant batch of chocolate chip cookies. "Don't you think you're the better cook all the time?" Amanda crossed her arms and snapped. "You are not the queen of this house just because you bake a few cookies." Tammy's face flushed with annoyance. "Oh, Amanda, please. Don't eat them if you dislike them." The dispute swiftly got out of hand. Insults were hurled, words were exchanged, and soon the whole house was caught up in the commotion of their arguments. Chris, their younger brother, had finally had enough of playing video games in his room in silence. He had had enough of the shouting. "Enough, you too." With a harsh yet terrified tone, Chris rushed into the kitchen. "Stop babbling." Amanda and Tammy both turned to face him, their faces displaying anger. The sisters hesitated for a second because of Chris's pale face and anxious demeanor. "What's the matter, Chris?" Tammy inquired, rather alarmed in spite of herself. Chris swallowed and glanced between them, not knowing where to start. Although he had never been one to put up with family strife, he was forced to do so today. "I have something to share with you both," Amanda scowled. "What is it?" "Don't act like it's just another of your tricks." Chris inhaled deeply and shook his head. "Amanda, this is not a joke. It's serious." After a moment of hesitation, he went on. Last night, I heard Mom and Dad conversing. They are divorcing each other." Both sisters felt like they were slapped in the face by the comments. They both became silent for a time as they took in what Chris had just said. Amanda stood motionless, her mouth hanging open, as Tammy's rage swiftly turned to bewilderment. Are you serious?" With a faltering voice, Tammy inquired. Chris gave a nod. "I was unsure of how to tell you. However, they claimed to be keeping everything under wraps for the time being." The situation's reality started to set in. Amanda and Tammy exchanged glances, their resentment temporarily forgotten. Both sisters were aware of how shaky their family had become, and there was a lot of tension in the room. First to speak, Amanda's voice was hardly audible. "It's unbelievable that this is occurring." In an attempt to keep her composure, Tammy wiped away the tears that welled up in her eyes. "How much time have they spent organizing this?" Chris gave a headshake. "I'm not sure. However, I believe it has been some time. Lately, they have been arguing a lot. In private, you know. Although I believe we should know, I don't think they want us to." The next discussion was sober, and the sisters were reunited in their shock and grief for the first time in years. Their earlier altercations seemed insignificant today. They came to the realization that their familiar family was evolving, and that they would need to work together to navigate this challenging new phase. Chris stood silently, providing Tammy and Amanda with the comfort he didn't realize he needed as they hugged, tears running down their faces. The dispute was forgotten, but the burden of their parents' news persisted, serving as a continual reminder that life frequently presented them with unforeseen difficulties. But at least they would face it together for the first time in a long time. But it was meant to be the ideal family getaway. The beach was golden, the sun shone, and the ocean glistened like a massive sapphire. For months, the Johnson family had been organizing this trip, anticipating a week filled with fun, relaxation, and memories. However, Tammy was the only one who didn't feel the same enthusiasm. The youngest of three sisters, Tammy had always been a bit pickier than the others. She had perfected the knack of attracting attention by the time she was 10, but this time she went too far. The family was beaming as they arrived at their beachfront cottage, ready to unpack and take in the stunning surroundings. However, Tammy started to act out before she even got out of the car, so things didn't go as planned. "I don't want to be here," crossing her arms and staring at the sea as though it had personally insulted her. Tammy let out a shriek. "I wanted to go to Disney World, not this stupid place." Lily and Emma, her sisters, gaped at her in shock. Their parents looked at each other anxiously. "Tammy, honey," their mother murmured tenderly, "this place is going to be a lot of fun. Would you mind going to look at the beach? You may decide to change your mind." However, Tammy wasn't paying attention. Her face flushed as she stomped her foot on the gravel driveway. "I detest going to the beach. Sand is all over the place, and it's too hot." The worst vacation ever is this one. Her father made an effort to soothe her. We've been discussing this trip for a while, Tammy. It's an opportunity for us all to unwind. Would you mind trying it out? However, Tammy was irrational. When her outburst got out of control, the local vacationers saw and looked at the family with sympathy, while Lily, the middle kid, nervously tugged at her mother's sleeve. Emma, the eldest sister, moaned in frustration. The family's atmosphere changed as the tantrum went on. What should have been a calm beginning to the trip instead felt strained and uneasy. The sound of the waves hitting the beach was muffled by Tammy's cries and yelling. Finally, after what seemed like a lifetime, their mother crouched next to Tammy and inhaled deeply. "Tammy," she said, "this conduct is unacceptable. Your rage is destroying everyone's holiday. You need to relax and consider how you and the rest of us can enjoy this vacation if you want it to be better." For a brief while, Tammy's tears stopped, but her frown persisted. "I don't care," she mumbled, her arms crossed more tightly. Her father, who had been quiet up until this point, opened his mouth. "Listen to me, Tammy. We want you to be happy because we love you. However, you must realize that what you do impacts everyone. It's not all about you. It's about spending quality time with our family. I thus ask that you consider if you wish to participate in this vacation or whether you wish to spoil it for everyone." Tammy found the conversation difficult to hear, but she finally stopped resisting. She spent some time pouting while sitting on the cottage porch, but after some peaceful introspection, she came to a realization. Her parents were no longer upset. Her sisters were having a good time at the beach, and perhaps, just possibly, the trip could be enjoyable after all. By the end of the day, Tammy and her family were strolling along the shore, her outburst a thing of the past. Despite her dissatisfaction with the holiday, she made the decision to enjoy it to the fullest. The Johnson family eventually started to unwind as the sun sank over the horizon, their laughing blending with the sound of the waves. Although it wasn't the ideal beginning they had hoped for, even the most violent outbursts can occasionally result in a calm conclusion. But two sisters named Amy and Tammy used to reside in a tiny seaside village. Amy liked the sea and was an adventurous, inquisitive person. Despite being more circumspect, Amy's older sister Tammy always accompanied her on her crazy exploits. They lived near the beach, where the sea wind whispered secrets of the depths, and the sound of the waves lapping against the coast was like a lullaby. Amy had a fantastic idea when she woke up one beautiful morning. "Tammy," she exclaimed with excitement, "we're going to swim with dolphins today." Half awake, Tammy moaned. "Swim among dolphins? You are aware that I am not the finest swimmer, Amy." "Oh, hurry up." With a smile, Amy got her sister out of bed. "We'll be all right. Dolphins have been spotted playing close to the rocks. We'll simply go out and swim with them." Despite her reluctance, Tammy was powerless to stop Amy's excitement. They packed a bag with snacks, got their swimwear, and headed to the beach after a short breakfast. The lake gleamed like diamonds as the sun rose high in the sky. With excitement, Amy, who was already in the water, gestured for Tammy to follow her. After a brief moment of hesitation, Tammy made the decision to proceed. She inhaled deeply before diving into the cool sea. Amy dived and twirled in the water as if she were a dolphin when they were swimming. "Look, Tammy, I'm a dolphin," she exclaimed, flipping around in the water. Tammy couldn't help but smile as she gradually became more at ease in the water. She laughed as she continued to splash water everywhere while attempting to imitate her sister's elegant movements. At that moment, a group of dolphins surfaced, swimming around the sisters. Amy's eyes grew wide with wonder. "Look, I told you," she yelled, gesturing. As though to greet the two girls, the dolphins smoothly sprang out of the water. As Tammy observed the dolphins, her panic vanished. They glided through the waves with such ease, beauty, and playfulness. Amy reached out and touched the soft skin of a dolphin that swam close. When it whistled softly, both sisters let forth happy laughs. The dolphins seemed to be beckoning them to partake in their enjoyment. Amy and Tammy spent the next few hours swimming with the dolphins, having fun and laughing. Tammy attempted to follow along, gradually gaining confidence as Amy mimicked their actions. The two sisters experienced the enchantment of the ocean as though they were a part of the pod. Amy and Tammy grudgingly swam back to shore as the sun started to set, bathing the sea in a warm golden glow. They watched the dolphins vanish into the distance as they lay on the beach, content but fatigued. "I suppose I can also be a dolphin," Tammy said as she turned to face Amy. "That was incredible." "We'll have to do it again tomorrow," said Amy with a smile. The girls then went on to spend the remainder of their summer swimming with dolphins, exploring the ocean's depths, and learning the value of friendship with the most fun creatures in the world. Knowing they were a part of something far greater and more exquisite than they could have ever dreamed, they would all yell together, "I'm a dolphin," as they jumped into the waves each time they swam. Despite being inseparable sisters, Amy and Tammy couldn't have been more dissimilar. The eldest of the two, Tammy, was always the one with the responsibility. She was stable, composed, and somewhat wary. Amy, on the other hand, had an uncontrollable sense of adventure and was full of strange ideas. Growing up, they had experienced everything together, even the same room and dreams. Today, however, was different. Both of them had never dreamed of the voyage they were going to take today. The sisters were well known for their special closeness and lived in a tiny town where everyone knew one another. However, there was a twist to their tale. Amy and Tammy were affectionately referred to as the 1,000-pounds sisters. Their combined weight of more than 1,000 pounds had influenced their lives in ways that most people would never comprehend. Amy came up with an idea one bright afternoon. "Let's do something big, Tammy. Let's travel the city in a limousine. We'll make a day of it, go to our favorite places, eat whatever we want, and simply enjoy ourselves." At first, Tammy hesitated. "A limousine, Amy? We're not exactly little, and you are aware of how cramped the seats may be." However, Amy's excitement was infectious. "We'll work things out. It will be our great journey. Live a little? Come on," she smiled. After some persuasion, Tammy consented. The sisters scheduled the date for the very next weekend and contacted a limousine service. They stood in front of their home on that day, gazing at the elegant black limousine that had parked into their driveway. As Tammy considered how they might fit in the car, her heart began to accelerate. Amy, however, was already giggling, and her enthusiasm was contagious. Carl, the driver, came out to greet them. He was a pleasant man. "Women, are you prepared for an amazing journey?" Amy smiled and said, "Yes, let's get this done." Feeling a little out of place but glad to be beside Amy, Tammy smiled sheepishly. The limousine had been carefully furnished with more room and wider seats for comfort. They were astounded by the amount of space they had as they got in. It like a miniature celebration on wheels, with leather chairs, dazzling lighting, and a minibar filled with nibbles and sparkling water. The inside was luxurious. Amy kicked back right away and grabbed a bag of chips, saying, "This is ideal. Take a look at all the room." Tammy laughed and eased up a bit. "All right, this isn't too horrible. I'm happy we took this action." They were taken on a tour they would never forget as the limousine sailed across the city, passing well-known sights. After picking up cupcakes from their favorite bakery, they headed to the park to watch the sunset. The sisters chatted, joked, and laughed at every stop, discussing anything from their earliest recollections to their most ambitious future plans. Today, Tammy allowed herself to accommodate Amy's spontaneity, even though she had always been the voice of reason. For once, there were no concerns or criticisms, just the ability to savor the present. The sisters looked out the window as the evening drew to a close, taking in the twinkling city lights below. Tammy smiled as she turned to meet Amy. "The best day was today. I appreciate you encouraging me to accomplish it." Amy smiled. "It will be enjoyable, I promised. We are worthy of such days. We're all in this together, and we'll always manage to make life fantastic." There had been more to the limo ride than merely a city tour. It served as a reminder that Tammy and Amy were unstoppable when they were together, regardless of the obstacles they encountered. Despite being known as the 1,000-pound sisters, their love and bond for one another was stronger than anything else. They knew they would always remember this adventure as the limo sped off into the darkness. Greetings and welcome to my channel, dear viewers. I hope you're having a great day. I'm Minna. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.